Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. Work programs are underway in Finland and planned for Canada this summer. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol ADD, on Frankfurt symbol 82A1, and the OTCQB symbol ASDZF. Please visit our website arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is home ownership consultant Ross Kay from thewealthyhomeowner.ca. Welcome back to the show, Ross.
And thanks for having me back, Jim, and happy Labor Day, I guess.
Ross, it's back to school. A lot of talk about housing. What do you think we'll be hearing in the weeks ahead?
Well, I think there'll be a continuation, Jim, of the last 2 months of conversation that's come out of the organized real estate, bank economists, and other stakeholders in the real estate industry. People that are relying upon houses being bought and sold for their income. What you're going to hear is that things are a little bit better, even though things are getting worse at the same time. This is the sort of thing that we've heard in the news the last couple of weeks, a couple of months, Jim, with the June and July housing numbers being misconstrued, misused, misrepresented to the public, that the housing market was stabilizing, the housing market was rebounding, that the housing market was still in seller's territory. All those sort of comments are probably going to continue. So I think that's what we're going to hear. What is probably more important is what our listeners are listening to, or how they're interpreting what they're hearing. When organized real estate comes out, they're going to try to put the spin, every positive spin they can on the housing market, in spite of what's actually happening to the market at that moment in time. It's funny we're doing the show today because I was looking at some archives of some old print media from back in the early 1990s. And specifically what I was looking at, Jim, was when John Crow was the governor of the Bank of Canada. And at that time, he was raising interest rates to try to stave off inflation. Very similar to what Mr. Polaz is doing here in Canada right now. Because we've got this new rate announcement coming forward tomorrow. And it's really so informational when you read the comments of what was being said 28 years ago to how they are a direct parallel to the comments that are being made today. The exact same mistakes, Jim, that Mr. Crow made back in 1990, Mr. Polaz is repeating once again. Now, I don't know if it's because there's that long of a period of time between major housing corrections that the study of economics has not reached a point where they understand how housing markets work and the patterns they follow. But when you go back and you read those comments from 1990, and then you read the comments from today, they're almost identical. The Bank of Canada back then effectively raised interest rates from 10% to 14.75% over about a year and about a year's time. I think it was like a year and a couple of months. And that raising of the interest rates caused the housing market, which was already at its peak, to collapse. When we're looking at the housing market, we go back to the spring around June of 2016 on a national basis, just about the same time that, just a couple months after the British Columbia market had rolled over. And we see that the national numbers were rolling over as we entered into June of 2016. It took a long time before anyone heard about the falling housing market of the summer of 2017 nationally. And you still really haven't heard a whole lot about it. But these things are recorded months, years in advance. It just simply takes that long for them to roll out. So what you're going to be hearing in the weeks ahead is a continuation of what we've heard the last 2 months. The housing market is stabilizing. It's a seller's market. The new inventory coming on will all of a sudden magically be a sign of more activity. Every single positive spin they're going to make. What I'm upset about is, because I know what happened after the Bank of Canada raised its interest rate back in 1990, because we began recording that back in 1988, 2 years before anyone realized what was going on. The market has changed drastically. Your listeners, I hope they understand this. The housing market today nowhere resembles what it looked like last year, 2 years ago, or in the spring of 2016. It in no way looks anything like that. The housing market is totally different than what you're reading about in the newspapers, to what you're hearing from bank economists, from what you're hearing from realtors and real estate boards, what you're hearing from housing analysts for that matter. The housing market that they're looking at today was a housing market from a year ago. We are taking readings right now, Jim. Right now, we are taking readings that will dictate what the market happens, how it rolls out next spring. So what we're recording between now and the end of the year, we will be using that to record what's going to happen next spring. So what happens next spring will already be decided. That's what we're measuring now. The same reason we know what's going to happen this fall, which is basically that the national sales will be similar to what they were a year ago, which is a bad thing, by the way, folks. Even though it will be spun as things are getting better, things don't get better in a real estate market where they're stagnating. Things are getting worse. Buyers are continuing to get more and more home. Yes, the average selling price will stay very similar, very stable. But the amount of home you're getting, as we've said on the show for 2 years, is substantially more. You only need to look over in Calgary, folks, because last month in Calgary, I think their sales were off about 5% in August. And that will be spun as if things are okay. It's not okay. In Calgary, people are losing money on their home every single month. The house itself, the houses themselves are dropping in value. At the same time, the average selling price is staying the same. All that means is the home buyers are continuing to spend around $500,000 on average, around $480,000 to $500,000 depending on the month, and they're just getting more and more and more home. When you're getting 16% more home for the exact same price you would have paid 3 years ago, you clearly are getting a huge discount, and that's what you're not going to hear in the weeks ahead.
We'll have more with Ross Kay right after the break.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Magnum Gold Corp. Inc., MGI on the TSX Venture Exchange. A 2015 drill program on the LH property intersected high-grade gold, including 16.9 meters of 13.58 grams and 11 meters of 20.66 grams per ton gold. A follow-up drill program is planned to further evaluate previously identified subsurface high-grade gold mineralization. Please visit our website at magnumgoldcorp.com.
MGX Minerals is revolutionizing the new energy economy with patented lithium extraction technology, replacing traditional solar evaporation using low-cost, low-energy nanofiltration. The first system of this paradigm shift technology is currently being commissioned. MGX Minerals trades on the CSE, symbol XMG, the OTCQB, symbol MGXMF, and Frankfurt, symbol 1MG. For more information, visit our website, mgxminerals.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Ross Kay. Ross, The Economist magazine says Metro Vancouver real estate prices are overvalued by 65%. Does that mean Vancouver market prices could drop 65% before reaching a normal valuation?
Probably in the minds of economists, that's what it means, Jim. It's just one of the plethora of erroneous reports that are bizarre when we read them. You're a 65% overvaluation. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean that houses are selling for 65% more than what they're worth? Or does that mean that houses are going to drop by 65%? Because, of course, when you're going up, it's a big difference, a lot bigger difference than when you're going down. So we don't know from the comment that you asked me there, what is their term of overvaluation? We're going to go with the lesser number. Let's say that they're saying that if housing prices are going to drop 65%. I can assure your listeners that it would be impossible to build a house today in Metro Vancouver for 65% off and still be able to make a profit. There is not a builder out there that can drop their prices by 65% and still make a profit. What your listeners can get some insight with is by understanding that land values, developers buy land years in advance, and those sales continue on. In Vancouver's case, those sales of land, raw land, would have continued on right up till now. Now, between early 2017 and now, the builders should have been getting a little bit of a discount on the land that they're buying, but really not too much of a discount. What they basically are doing is they're able to buy land without paying more than what it would have sold for a year ago. That land price is a large component of the cost of housing. Now, even with high-rise condos, the land cost is substantial. It's so substantial that a 65% house price correction is impossible. Now, the other side of the coin is this, Jim. For any economist, bank manager, housing analyst, academic, professor who claims that a 65% correction is possible, what they're saying is the Canadian economy goes into the greatest depression in the history of this nation. What they're saying is, they're saying about 25 to 30% of existing homeowners will have their homes foreclosed on. Now, a foreclosure in Canada is not like foreclosure in the States. The 25 to 30% foreclosure rate in Canada would mean that we would have families out in breadlines. The government could not borrow enough money to provide social services for those people. It would be impossible. The Canadian dollar would be like the Mexican peso. That's where it would be devalued at. Canadian wealth is held in Canadian homes. The reason why we come onto this show is to stress the importance of that. We handle larger asset amounts. So the Wealthy Homeowner Platform handles more asset wealth than any other large financial brokerage in Canada. Now, we're not actively telling people to go in what to do, but my point is that we're in the tens and hundreds, almost $100 billion now that we have under management. That is a staggering amount of money for the few strategists that we have working here. That is the power of homeownership wealth. The assumption from anyone, a 65% reduction, Jim, let's be honest, it means the net wealth of people in Metro Vancouver would be zero. The net wealth, all of the net wealth in Metro Vancouver would be wiped out with a 65% house price correction. That is not going to happen. Your housing stock, the way that it's structured, because there's so few single detached homes, because the single detached building envelopes are so few, because of the green building philosophy that's going in British Columbia, because people for some reason don't want to drive out to Langley or Abbotsford and commute to Vancouver. All of those those factors come into play to your housing market. And that means the 65% correction is impossible. If it ever did happen, for the sake of the argument, it would mean that there would be bread lines, soup lines, our hospitals would be closed. There is no possible way of funding our social infrastructure with that type of financial devastation of the population. This nation right now, Jim, relies heavily on the real estate sector. I disagree that it should rely on it. I think it should rely on it in a large percentage, not the ridiculous percentage that it is now. I believe that the homeownership stock, growing it and allowing Canadians to own single detached homes is the single most important social, financial, and political decision that will ever happen in the history of this country, the world for that matter, Jim. Because if we build more single detached homes, we can welcome more immigration. If we don't build those homes, this country cannot welcome new immigrants any longer. And we know we've got an aging population, so that creates its own problems. Long story short, a 65% house price correction is impossible. And if it was possible, which it's not, it would mean we would have soup lines lined up around every single community center in this country.
We'll have more with Ross Kay right after this.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp., RMO, on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain's Brunswick property is located in the Rideout Shear Zone in Ontario, with grab samples running as high as 32 grams per ton gold. A follow-up drill program to test numerous targets located by recent groundwork is planned for early 2018. Please visit our website at rmroyalty.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Ross Kay. Ross, RE/MAX released a survey last week stating 51% of those 18 to 24 would like to buy a home in the next 5 years. With prices the way they are these people just dreaming in BC and Ontario?
Yeah, they're dreaming, but they're living the same dream that we all live. I mean, I've got 4 kids. My 4 kids are all in their 20s. I am sure if I said, would you like to buy a house in the next 5 years? Their answer is going to be yes, too. Who wouldn't? Who's very, very few, a very small percent of the population prefers not to be a homeowner. A very small percentage. People are not homeowners because they can't afford to become one, or in a very rare instance, they want to be able to relocate on a regular basis, and they don't want to set down roots. But that is a very, very small percentage. I'm guessing, Jim, there's probably not even 15% of the population that really wants to be a tenant. Everybody wants to own. So this is one of those stupid surveys that was created by RE/MAX, American real estate franchising company, to sell more RE/MAX franchises by getting more sales reps to sign up to work under their offices. That's exactly what this survey was created for.
Now, what can these young adults do to make their dream of owning a home more realistic? What should they be doing right now if they're 18 to 24?
The number one thing they need to do is they need to approach it the same way that their parents did, the same way that I did, the same way that my kids are going to have to do it. The number one problem that holds back young people from buying a house is a plan. If you do not have a plan how you're going to go out there and do it, you're never going to succeed. Years ago, you might have gotten away with without a plan. Back in the 1980s, you might have gotten away without a plan, but you're not going to get away without one today. You need to know how you're going to save your down payment. You need to know how you're going to navigate the property ladder. How many times am I going to have to move over so many years? How am I going to pay down my mortgage? What is the best way while I'm owning the home Should I pay down the mortgage, or should I be investing my money elsewhere? These are the sort of questions that young age group, you never answer because you don't think about it. When you're 24 years old, you may just be getting done university. You're not thinking about a plan to own a home. Now, the other flip side here, Jim, is that people don't normally buy a home till they're 30. It's only after they're getting married, which 28, 29, 30, 32, it's a little bit later now because of the extra year of post-secondary education and the cost that the government has labeled the youth with that. Then all of a sudden, once you get to that age, you get married, and then the house comes next. That is the way the system works.
Ross, do people have to be more realistic instead of that holiday in Cabo or wild weekend in Vegas they go on every year? Cancel that, do something modest at home, and don't have a wildly expensive wedding. Use that money instead towards a down payment. Well, again, if you have a plan, that's exactly what you're going to do. There is nothing wrong with a bride wanting a beautiful engagement ring. There is nothing wrong with people wanting to have a beautiful wedding. But when you go to you can't have everything. So if you also want a house and you want to live in Metro Vancouver or the Greater Toronto area, you can't have it all. Your parents didn't have it all. Your grandparents didn't have it all. Your kids aren't going to have it all. You can't have it all. We live in a society where you've got to work for what you get. And if you think that you can go down south on the fancy holidays 2 or 3 times a year, there's nothing wrong with that, but that's your choice. Those 2 or 3 times a year, or Jim, if you're a guy, that new BMW that you want, or the new Nissan 370Z, whatever you want, there's a cost associated with that. That cost is you don't have that money to spend somewhere else. You can do everything. I mean, that's what I want your listeners to understand. You really can do everything, but you just simply need to sit down with a plan and decide how you're going to get that goal. We have plans that we set up for first-time buyers that sets goalposts for them, savings rates for them. They can blow everything out. If they have enough money left over to take a trip down south, blow it. If they have enough money left over to make a $500 a month car payment, blow it. If they have enough money left over to have an extra 50 people at their wedding, go ahead and blow it. If you blow it and you don't have it, you're not going to have that money to start your home. And why this matters, Jim, is this, and this is why this RE/MAX survey these type of things really upset me. Because homeownership wealth is the foundation to your life. I don't care what anyone else says. We have 100,000 years of homeownership life that we review. People that in aggregate have owned their homes for over 100,000 years. That shows us the overwhelmingly easiest way and most guaranteed way to build your own personal wealth is to buy a home. My biggest fear today is that the affordability issue or the way that the government has portrayed it, that we're going to be able to solve your problems for you, are impossible. We've got someone running for mayor in Toronto here, in the Greater Toronto area, former planner for the city of Toronto, had moved out to British Columbia to join the West Bank group, and now is running for the mayor of Toronto, promising 100,000 affordable homes. Now, where's the money going to come from? It's going to come from the taxpayers. In other words, they're going to take money from you to supplement someone else. They're still not going to give them a home, Jim. They're not going to set them off in the property ladder. They're going to get the rents
tied to their income, which is the very worst thing anyone can do financially, Jim. That's the worst thing you can ever do. Letting your income determine your rent. Because with rent, you are saving no money. At least with the house, if you get in the property ladder, if you don't get fooled by one of these new condo builders trying to convince you to buy 450 square foot single one bedroom home in a high rise where the condo fees are going to escalate drastically because they have walled the building in glass. If you don't listen to all those people, if you simply get some real homeownership advice, if you simply understand which condominiums you should be buying to start out with and how long you should be living there, how much of your own personal income should be going towards that house payment, how much of your income needs to go towards savings. If you have that whole plan in place, you're not going to fall into the same trap the 18 to 24-year-olds outlined in this survey have fallen into.
Ross?
The trap is it's what we would like to happen, not what's going to happen.
Of course, your want list and need list. Ross, was I wrong when I told my young friends who were thinking about buying, because they said, if I buy, what happens if prices go down? And I simply said, if you rent, do you get any money back when you leave? Even if prices go down when you sell your house, you get some money back. That doesn't happen if you rent, right?
Yeah, when housing, this is how you look at housing. This is how we present it to people, Jim. There's a balance, a scale. On one side of the scale is equity, how much net wealth you have. On the other side of the scale is debt. When you've owned your house for 25, 30 years and you paid off your mortgage, the scale is on the ground on the equity side. The side of the scale that had mortgage or debt is empty. Your entire net wealth is there. Now, while you're owning your house, until you reach that point, you're continually taking pennies from one side of the balance and putting it on the other. As you're paying down your mortgage, you're adding equity. So the scale is gradually tipping. What's the beautiful thing about mortgage debt, Jim? This is the beautiful thing about it, is that the more mortgage debt you're paying down, the quicker the imbalance goes. It's very hard to get it to move at the start, but once you get it moving, it moves even quicker. And it moves so quick at the end that you really don't even realize what's going on. And you look back, 10 years has gone by, you've paid off your mortgage, and if your housing prices haven't gone up, that means you've had a 0% gain on your home equity.
And Ross, just quickly here too, we have one more question. The National Bank's economists released a report stating Vancouver and Toronto condos were the most affordable in the world, but at the same time, affordability problems have been headlines in both cities for years. Who should our listeners believe?
They shouldn't believe either one. Number one, the survey that you're talking about from National Bank, I think that was just released last week. It was like a one-page document by some economics team that they have at the National Bank. The same people who create the faulty Internet National Bank House Price Index, which is used by the banks, which has caused all the problems that the OSFI has warned against using. That said, what they do is they've taken the housing affordability, they put it in American dollars, then they're saying about the quality of life that you're able to get when you're living there. What they don't take into consideration, Jim, is the taxation in Canada. The reason why home ownership is attractive in Canada is because we have a national health care system that is funded by the taxpayers. People don't understand when they're comparing housing markets from different countries. Canada's national health care system is effectively paying for insurance that allows you to go out and buy a house. If you didn't have that insurance, for the sake of the argument, you're in the United States, you would have to pay for that insurance. And if it was under the Obama administration, you were forced to pay for the insurance, whether or not you got it or not. In Canada, we don't have that. that insurance is paid by everyone in our country, so our shared cost lowers, and it makes it that we don't have to go out and purchase health insurance in order to cover our mortgage payment. That's what the difference is, where these studies never take that into consideration. It's the same one with affordability, Jim. When they have these discussions about affordability, they need to step back and identify who specifically they're talking about. Is it a young married couple with 2 kids, both working minimum wage? Okay, if that's the case, let's add in whatever government assistance or government programs or tax credits or grants, whatever that is. Add it to them. Look at their total tax payable. Look at their total disposable income. And then from that, determine how much of their income, disposable income, is fair for them to pay. You know, Jim, right now in Canada, there are people approved by the Canadian government through CMHC to buy a home where over 80% of their after-tax income will go to their house. Not groceries, not car, their house. Over 80% of their after-tax income will go to their house. That's in Canada. That's today. That is government-backed by CMHC. When we're talking affordability, let's talk from a rational standpoint. When we're talking about Vancouver, Toronto versus New York City, London, or Hong Kong, let's talk from a rational standpoint. Let's not talk from some point where we're simply looking to grab headlines.
Ross, thank you so much for chatting with us.
And thanks for having me on, Jim.
My guest has been Ross Kay, home ownership consultant at thewealthyhomeowner.ca. If you have any questions for Ross or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@housestreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of House Street Media Incorporated.